You've seen Peppa Pig's house hundreds of times. Yellow walls, red roof, sitting on its little hill like it's always been there. Simple, familiar, completely ordinary, except it isn't. Once you start looking closely at the Pig family house, really looking, things start getting strange. The inside is somehow bigger than the outside should allow. Rooms appear and disappear depending on the episode. There's a basement that raises more questions than it answers. And in one official promotional image, there's a pig standing in the window when every member of the family is already outside. Nobody noticed. Nobody explained it. Today, we're going into all of it. 9 hidden details about the Pig family house that most viewers have never caught. Let's start with the first one. Secret number 1, the real-life Peppa House mystery. The first secret isn't about something inside the house, but about where its design may have come from. If you look closely at the Pig family home, you'll notice that its design is extremely simple. A round yellow house sitting alone on a hill with a red roof and just a few windows. That simplicity isn't accidental. The creators of Peppa Pig have explained in interviews that the show was designed to use very basic shapes and layouts, so young children could easily recognize locations on screen. That's why the house is drawn almost like a child's drawing of a home, a simple shape placed on top of a hill. But over the years, some fans noticed that a real structure in Denmark looks surprisingly similar to the Pig family house. The building is known as the Buried Church, an old church tower that stands alone on top of a sandy hill. The resemblance is interesting. Both structures sit isolated on elevated ground, and both have a simple silhouette that stands out against the landscape. However, there's no official confirmation that the Peppa Pig creators based the house on this structure. Most likely, the similarity is just a coincidence caused by the show's intentionally simple design style. But the comparison still shows something interesting about the way the series was built. Even something as ordinary as the Pig family house was carefully designed so that children could recognize it instantly, no matter how briefly it appears on screen. And once you start paying attention to how the house is positioned, you'll notice another detail that appears throughout the entire town. Secret number 2. Why every house is built on a hill. When you start looking at the town where the Pig family lives, you'll notice something very unusual about how every house is built. Take a moment to think about it. In almost every episode where we see the town from a distance, there's one detail that always stands out. Every single house sits on top of its own hill. Peppa's house is on a hill. Susie Sheep's house is on another hill. Even the homes of other characters appear to stand on their own separate little hills scattered across the landscape. At first, this just looks like a simple design choice. The hills make the town look playful and colorful, which fits the style of the show. But if you look a little closer, there may actually be a deeper reason behind it. In one episode called The Biggest Muddy Puddle in the World, something very unusual happens in Peppa Town. After heavy rain, a massive flood spreads across the entire area. Water covers almost everything in sight. Roads disappear, fields are submerged, and large parts of the town become completely flooded. But interestingly, the houses remain safe. Because they're built on top of hills, the water never reaches them. The houses stay above the flood level, while everything else becomes one giant muddy puddle. That detail may seem small, but it suggests something important about the town itself. If the houses are built this way on purpose, it could mean the residents of Peppa Town are used to dealing with floods. Building homes on hills would be the safest way to avoid water damage during heavy storms. And the way the characters react during the episode makes it seem like flooding isn't something unusual for them.
What are you doing here? Wow!
Nobody panics. Nobody seems surprised. Instead, the characters treat it almost like a normal part of life. They simply put on their boots, jump into the muddy water, and continue their day. It's almost as if the town has experienced flooding so many times that everyone has learned how to live with it. But that raises another interesting question. If floods are so common in Peppa Town that every house needs to sit on a hill, what does the rest of the land look like during the worst storms? And if that mystery already feels strange, the next secret about the Pig family house might be even harder to explain. Secret number 3. The impossible interior. One of the most noticeable details about the Pig family house is how different it feels on the inside compared to the outside. From the exterior, the house looks very small. It appears to be a simple 2-story home with a handful of windows and a single front door. Nothing about it suggests that it contains a large number of rooms. But as the series continues, viewers see more and more spaces inside the house. There's the living room, where the family watches television, the kitchen where Mummy Pig cooks meals. Upstairs, there are bedrooms for the children and for the parents. Later episodes also show additional spaces, such as a hallway, an attic area, and a guest room. When fans started listing the different rooms that appear throughout the show, they noticed something interesting. The interior layout seems much larger than what the exterior would realistically allow. This isn't necessarily a mistake. It's actually very common in animated shows. Writers often introduce new rooms when a story needs them, even if those rooms were never shown before. Because of that, the layout of cartoon homes can slowly grow over time. In other words, the Pig family house isn't expanding physically. The show is simply revealing different parts of it when the story requires them. Still, it creates the impression that the house is much bigger on the inside than it first appears. And if the interior layout already feels flexible, another change to the house later in the series raises even more questions about how the home is used. Secret number 4. The garage that's almost never used. In early episodes of Peppa Pig, the family house doesn't have a garage. Daddy Pig's red car is usually parked outside near the hill, and the show never suggests that the family has a covered place to store it. But later in the series, when the Pig family prepares for the arrival of their new baby, the house undergoes several changes. During this expansion, a garage is added to the side of the house. This is a small detail, but it's interesting because it shows that the Pig family home isn't completely static. The creators occasionally update the house as the story evolves. However, even after the garage appears, the car is still often shown parked outside. That's probably not meant to suggest anything mysterious. It's more likely a practical animation choice. Scenes that begin with the family leaving the house are easier to stage if the car is already outside. But the addition of the garage still reveals something about the show's design. Even though Peppa Pig keeps its environments simple, the creators sometimes modify familiar locations to reflect changes in the characters' lives. And the house itself is one of the best examples of that. Secret number 5. Peppa's hidden address.
But how do they know where we live?
I gave them our address when we ordered the takeaway.
But how will it get here?
Miss Rabbit will…
Most cartoons don't bother giving their characters real addresses. After all, animated shows are meant to take place in imaginary worlds. Viewers don't usually expect to know the exact street where their favorite characters live. But Peppa Pig is a little different. At one point, fans discovered that the Pig family house actually has a specific address connected to it. According to details shared by the creators of the show, Peppa's house is located at house number 3 on Ashley Street in Peppa Town. For many viewers, this information was surprising. It showed that the creators had thought carefully about even the smallest details of the character's world. Instead of leaving the location completely vague, they gave the Pig family home a real street name and house number. But the address hides an interesting secret. The name Ashley Street is believed to be a reference to Neville Ashley, one of the key animators involved in the creation of the Peppa Pig series. By including this name in the show's world, the creators quietly paid tribute to someone who helped bring the cartoon to life. It's a small Easter egg hidden in plain sight. Animators often include these kinds of references in their work as a fun way to honor the people behind the scenes. Most young viewers watching the show would never notice something like this. But older fans who look closely at the details sometimes uncover these hidden connections. And once you realize the address might be referencing someone from the production team, it becomes clear that the Pig family house contains more hidden details than it first appears. But the next secret about the house might be one of the strangest yet. Because when you examine the lower part of the house, something about it doesn't seem to make sense. And it all has to do with the mysterious basement. Secret number 6, the basement that shouldn't exist. Another part of the Pig family house that viewers rarely see is the basement. Unlike the living room or the kitchen, the basement appears only occasionally in the series. But the interesting detail isn't that it exists, it's where it exists, because the house sits on top of a hill. In real life, houses built on hills often have basements that extend into the hillside itself. Instead of being directly underneath the house, part of the basement is dug horizontally into the slope. That could easily explain how the Pig family house has a basement despite sitting on elevated ground. However, the show almost never reveals how large that basement actually is. And because Peppa Town already includes underground homes, like the Rabbit family's tunnel house, it's possible that there are larger underground spaces beneath the hill than viewers ever see. The series never explores this part of the house in detail, which means the underground area beneath the Pig family home remains one of the least shown locations in the entire setting. Secret number 7. The rooms that almost never appear. At one point in the series, something very important happens to the Pig family house. The house gets rebuilt. When the Pig family learns that their family is about to grow, Daddy Pig decides that their home needs more space. A new baby means new responsibilities, and the family wants to make sure everyone has enough room. So instead of simply adding one extra room, the Pig family ends up expanding the entire house. After the reconstruction is finished, the house appears noticeably larger. Peppa and George eventually get their own bedrooms instead of sharing the same bunk bedroom they had before. The parents' room remains upstairs, and the house seems to have gained several additional spaces. At first, this sounds completely normal. Families often renovate or expand their homes when they need more room. But when fans began paying attention to the episodes that came after the reconstruction, they noticed something interesting. Even though the house is now much bigger, most of those new rooms rarely appear in the show. We know they exist because the house was expanded, but the camera almost never shows them. Instead, the episodes still focus on the same familiar areas: the living room, the kitchen, and the children's bedrooms. This leaves viewers wondering what exactly is happening in the rest of the house. If the house gained so many new rooms during the renovation, what are those rooms being used for? Are they simply empty most of the time? Are they storage spaces? Or are they rooms that the characters use off-screen but that viewers never get to see? Cartoons often simplify locations so the audience doesn't get confused by too many places. But the Pig family house seems to have far more space than the show ever reveals, which means there could be entire parts of the house that viewers have never explored. And if that already feels mysterious, the next secret might be even stranger. Because the Pig family didn't just expand their home, they completely replaced it. Secret number 8. The house that was completely rebuilt. When many people think about the Pig family house, they imagine the same familiar building that has appeared in the show for years. But technically, the house that appears in the later seasons isn't the exact same house from the earlier episodes. At some point in the story, the original house was actually demolished. Daddy Pig decided that the best way to create enough space for the growing family was to rebuild the house from scratch. Instead of simply adding extensions or building new rooms onto the existing structure, the entire house was replaced. But here's the interesting part. The new house wasn't built in a different location. It was built in the exact same place as the original one. The old house was removed, and the new house was constructed on the very same hill where the Pig family had always lived. That decision raises a curious question. If the family was already rebuilding the house, why didn't they choose a new location? They could have built a larger house somewhere else in Peppa Town. They might have chosen a flatter area or a place closer to their friends. Instead, they kept the same hill. Maybe the family simply liked living there. After all, it's the home they had known for a long time. But some fans think there could be another explanation. If the basement and underground spaces we talked about earlier exist beneath the hill, then rebuilding the house in the same spot might have allowed those hidden areas to remain exactly where they were. In other words, whatever lies beneath the hill may have stayed untouched during the reconstruction. And if that thought feels a little mysterious, the final secret we're going to talk about might be the most unusual one of all, because it involves something that appeared in the background of an official image. Something that fans noticed only after looking very closely. Secret number 9. The mysterious pig in the window. The final secret comes from a small detail that appeared in one of the earliest promotional images for the show. The image shows the Pig family standing outside their house together, almost like a family photo. Peppa, George, Mummy Pig, and Daddy Pig are all smiling in front of the hill. But if you look carefully at the window behind them, you can see the shape of another pig standing inside the house. At first glance, it almost looks like Peppa, but Peppa is already outside in the picture. The most likely explanation is that this was simply an animation or layout mistake during the creation of the image. Promotional artwork is often produced quickly during early stages of a show's release, and small inconsistencies can slip through. Still, the detail caught the attention of fans because it appears in official material rather than a random screenshot from an episode. Whether it was a mistake or just a background placeholder used by the artists, it's a small example of how even simple cartoons can contain unexpected details when viewers start looking closely. And after examining all these small clues, it becomes clear that the Pig family house is more carefully designed than it first appears. Even a location that seems simple on the surface can hide interesting details once you start paying attention.